Oh, hey, good morning, good afternoon, everybody, depending on which part of this beautiful country that you're in. I'm Sheila Gunn Reid, and I'm joined by my co host, Drea Humphrey, and you are watching Rebel Roundup, our twice weekly at this point, unscripted. I guess it's a talk show wherein we take on the news of the day and the issues of the world, completely unscripted, sometimes a little bit flying blind, and you'll get our hot takes, our spicy takes, and even our cold takes. Drea, how's it going?
Well, it's going pretty good considering. We'll get into that a little later, but yeah, I'm happy to be on the show again.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you, and I'm glad to see that you're safe, despite threats against your person and your family. And we'll get to that in a little bit, and we'll let people know how they can get involved in helping us, helping you to stay safe from, a maniac and a bully. I don't think I'm being unfair when I say those things, and people can see for themselves. And I'm going to give everybody right now a language warning. Um,
Hmm.
what you're going to hear is really jarring. Like every time I hear it, it's like a full body flinch for me.
Yeah.
Um, but even more so for you because it was directed at you. We'll let everybody know what we're doing, and then we'll just let you go into what's been happening in the Jonathan Yaniv slash Jessica Simpson saga in British Columbia. And I mean, you're really putting yourself in harm's way, but I think you are doing important journalism that nobody else is doing. And I don't think anybody else is able to stop Jessica, Jonathan Yaniv, except for you. I think you are, as I said, born for a time such as this, and right person, right place, right bad guy, I think. But anyway, I'll say what we're doing here, and then I'll just turn it over to you because it really is
All
your
right.
story, and you can explain that to the people. So, as I said, this is Rebel Roundup. It's our twice weekly show. We have it on Monday or the first day of the week, first business day of the week, and Friday. And we talk about the news of the day completely unscripted, but we just don't do the talking. We want you to get involved too. So if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you for sticking out over there. That's a censorship platform. They have completely demonetized us over there. They don't want our opinions over there. It's one of the reasons we remain there. The less the less you want to shut me up, the more I'm going to talk. And there are 1.7 million sets of eyeballs of belonging to you over there. So that's where you are. So we'll talk to you there. But if you want to support a free speech platform that supports your right to speak your mind and our right to tell you what we think too, I suggest you head on over to Rumble. That, as I said, is a great free speech platform that allows you to support us completely willingly out of the goodness of your heart because you are so inclined, unlike what the mainstream media does with what Justin Trudeau does with the mainstream media when he just reaches into your pocket and gives them your cash, even though you don't like them and don't want to support them. So you can do something on Rumble called a Rumble Rant, and that's their paid chat. And that's a great way to support us. But if your Rumble Rant is over the $5 US cutoff, I'm hereby obligating myself or my friend Drea to read your comment on air and do our best to respond to it. So you can do that. Supports us, helps us keep the lights on, helps us do the journalism that we do. But don't let that be the bar for entry. For example, frequently we read the chats that are lower than the $5 US, and sometimes we even read the free chats if you guys are clever, witty, or insightful. So that's all of that. Drea, tell us what's happening with transgender bully deviant
Yeah. Hmm.
Jonathan Yaniv, Jessica Simpson. What's going on there?
Yes, legal name Jessica Simpson, formerly and more commonly known as Jonathan Yaniv. I think Rebel News has been following this individual to report on the menacing of society that he does since 2019, maybe 2018, when many of you are familiar with the Wax My Balls guy, the guy who was targeting many immigrant women who were offering services out of their home, beauty services, and presenting as a woman and then showing up at their house clearly as a man and demanding that they wax her, male genitalia and then suing them when they wouldn't. So that's how this all started. But what's really being exposed here, and the reason why this individual is unraveling, is that since then he has manipulated the courts in so many ways, and there are a litany of people living in fear because of this individual. There's a whole apartment building of elderly people who fear the day that the conditions will drop against him so that he's allowed to go back on the property where his mom lives. There's other mothers being threatened, like myself, who have filed police reports. It really goes on. I can't say it all in this, but you're seeing this individual. And I think we'll just go into the most recent threat. Actually, it's not the most recent because it's not stopping. It's every single day. So one of the most recent threats. So you can just really see how vile this individual is and how upset this individual is that we recently won the case in Supreme Court to have the publication bans removed that allowed us to look into what he was trying to hide in the courts. The judge didn't buy it, sided with Rebel News. You can support the thousands of dollars we spent to do that at yanivtrial.com. But this is why he's completely taken the mask off to a whole another level. Let's have a look.
Nigger, 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 fuck you. I have the picture of your kid on here, by the way. You want to see? You like that? You like that, Drea? Fucking little bitch. Look at all your little ping of security over there around you. I feel scared.
There's Mama Yaniv.
Better back away, Drea. Better back off. We know your friend's going to jail, Harry.
Now, yeah, that's completely vile. Something other people don't know is that this individual has tried to taunt my family with images of our residence online. I did, of course, report this to the police, but he wanted us to believe he was at our front window and made that pretty compelling. But he's messing with a rebel and our rebel viewers and rebel supporters. And I raise rebel children, and we're not going to be intimidated or bullied out of this, and we're not going to stop exposing the fact that you get a jail at a jail. What is that? The Monopoly. Sorry, guys. Get out of jail free card when you claim to be a victim of transphobia. Oh my gosh, I can't talk today. I guess I'm upset. But when you claim to be a victim of transphobia and really you are the one victimizing everybody else. So we're going to continue to pursue this, and Rebel, thank God for you guys, because I am talking with the RCMP, and that's the silver lining. I'm helping them build their case for the Crown, and they are getting everything because I know everything, because we've been covering this so closely. I'm able to say, look what this individual has done over the last 5-6 years and has never seen or stepped foot behind bars because of this. So they're getting it all at once. They're going to have to present that all to the Crown. So that's really the silver lining of what's happening here. And Ezra Levant, he was so upset, kind of like a father, flew right over after what you guys just saw and met with me in Vancouver to make sure we have an adequate plan, which we do. So my family is safe. So if anybody wants to contribute to the security costs, both at my home and more things that we don't want to really get into, please go to protectdrea.com.
I'm just so sorry that this happened to you. I'm so sorry that he's attempting to bully your family, using that language at you. And just, he feels so confident that using that language on the steps of the courthouse will not get him in any sort of trouble. He knows you're recording. He knows that somebody else is standing there recording. And he feels completely justified because he thinks he's going to get away with it. And unfortunately, he has. He has gotten away with it up until now. I noticed something that he did there when he said, I have a picture of your child on my phone. he has it as his screensaver. I don't know if you noticed that, but that's
Yeah.
how deranged he is, that he has a picture of your child as his screensaver. You can see when he unlocks his phone and he shows it, if you look really carefully. I had to do it with my glasses the other day because I'm old, and you can see the apps and then your child behind the apps in the phone. He is so obsessed with you and intimidating you and frightening. See, there's the apps. So intimidating you and frightening you that he has your child as his screensaver. I suppose the silver lining is that he's not doing this to vulnerable immigrant estheticians. He's doing this to a rebel. And so because of that, he has the backing of us. Ezra, for sure, he was like, I'm going to see Drea right now, hopped on a flight from Toronto to come to see you. You have the support of all of your colleagues. You know that we will, go to war for you on this issue. But what makes that all possible is the support of our viewers at home. Because really, we couldn't fight this guy, and I refuse to play his pronoun game. We couldn't fight this fetishist guy without their support. And I think you're the exact right person to take him down.
Just two more quick things to add to that. And yes, thank you for everybody who has been supporting us. But I just wanted to say with the pronoun thing, for 4 years, I have danced around the pronouns for that individual by avoiding using them altogether because I'm still going to stand in truth. And no more, there is no reason to, if you're going to threaten my family, I'm not even going to allude to giving some sort of respect for an individual. That's not against a community, that's against Jonathan Yaniv. The other thing I wanted to say is what's extra disturbing about him having my child's photo so readily available like that is this is an individual who has been sexually inappropriate with minors, which is another thing we've helped expose, and another reason he physically attacked my colleague David Menzies when he was questioning about that. So bear with us. I do believe this is all going to be used for good in the end, and most importantly, my family's safe.
Yes, and we are helping you take additional steps to keep your family safe. I'm glad you pointed out he has physically attacked Rebel News journalists in the past. He has assaulted David Menzies with a cane, physically assaulted our alumnus Kian Bexty. Had it not been for 2 security guards moving like this to protect me, he and his crazy mom were both coming at me. You cannot go do any, look at this. This is Kian. Again, steps of the courthouse.
Yeah, it's all at the courthouse too.
It's all at the courthouse.
The dog. Yeah.
This was at the condo in the parking lot, but lunging at me at the courthouse, like literally, I was just outside of the courthouse steps. Like I wasn't even off like the stairs of the courthouse, and they're coming at me right in front of the bailiffs. I guess the only thing, as I said on X the other day, that surprises me about Jonathan Yaniv is that he doesn't quite yet have a menagerie of women in a hole in his basement, because with an overbearing mom and a fetish for cross-dressing, he's the recipe for a serial killer in the before times. Add some lead to the paint and the lead to the gasoline, and we would have a real cocktail for disaster there. But please tell people how they can stand with you and help you out on this matter.
Well, if you want to help us keep me and my family safe, but also help us continue to pursue this so that we can expose the issue in the judicial system that allows not only this individual to be around to terrorize other people, but to not get the mental health help that he needs. Please go to protectdrea.com to help us make that all possible.
Yeah, and I should also point out, now just to even do journalism on Jonathan Yaniv, we will incur additional costs because, as you know, we're taking steps to protect you and make sure that there are official ways and additional documents to make sure that the police know that he cannot come near you. That will mean that we will have to fly in people to cover cases with Jonathan Yaniv if you are unable to report on them. So it will be either myself, just because I'm the next closest person, or Ezra, because he feels now moved by the spirit to be on the Jonathan Yaniv file. So, I mean, now it makes exposing his further misdeeds and evil and wrongdoing even more expensive. My goodness, that fly has been in my studio for 3 days. I'm just waiting for it to die.
The Mike Pence fly.
Oh, it's just going to land. It's going to land in my mouth if I don't shut up. But I mean, now even just to report on him, it becomes expensive. So keeping you safe costs money, and exposing him costs even more money now. But thanks to the support of our friends at home, we'll make sure that nothing Jonathan Yaniv does will be done in the dark.
And we can't have other trans extremists thinking they can just threaten our families and we're going to shut up.
Right. So. Right. Let this be a lesson. Don't get any strange ideas, weirdos. Okay. You know what? Do we have an ad break coming up, Efron? Maybe let's do that, and then we'll go directly into BC getting mugged by reality on the carbon tax.
I'm in Brazil, so I'm using a VPN to get on the internet. What's a VPN? It stands for a virtual private network, and you get around these government firewalls. Suddenly, the president of Brazil banned his whole country from going on Twitter. It was a political censorship news. I've downloaded the VPN from a company called PIA VPN. We've teamed up with them at Rebel, and it's a great deal. I got on the internet really quickly, safely, and even I'm a bit of a technophobe. I managed to figure it out with 2 clicks. And here's the great news. If you go to piavpn.com/rebel news, not only do you get a big discount, but they pay us a bit of a commission too. Everyone's a winner. Your freedom, your VPN, and a little bit of cash coming to support Rebel News. I'm using it myself to get around the censors in Brazil. You can use it too. That's piavpn.com/rebel news.
Why should you join Canada? We have one of the most aggressively anti-firearm governments in our nation's history, promoting fear and placing blame like never before. Our rights, freedoms, culture, and heritage, it's all on the line. But we are fighting back, and there is strength in numbers. We work within the law to change the law, to defend competitors, hunters, collectors, and other law-abiding firearms owners. We can get through this. We've done it before, and we'll do it again, if you are with us. Canada's National Firearms Association. Freedom, safety, responsibility.
All right, I should tell you that our friends at the National Firearms Association are sponsoring our Rebel News Live event in Calgary on October 5th. For tickets to that, head on over to rebelnewslive.com and you'll see our list of speakers. We just added another one today. We have yet to announce that because I just cut a promo for it. So stay tuned for that. But also visit nfa.ca to become a member and join the fight to restore our firearms rights here in Canada. And you know how important that is to me as a firearms owner. They advance through advocacy and even litigation. So there's that. Drea, your province was the first in the country to bring in a carbon tax.
Yeah.
And at the time they said, oh, carbon tax, it's revenue neutral. We'll add a new tax on everything, but don't worry, it's revenue neutral, which is garbage because how do you tax everything? And then even if they gave you everything you paid back, it has to cycle through the hands of 1,000 bureaucrats before they rebate it to you out the other side. And they don't work for free. Let me tell you that. But I mean, it's the biggest Ponzi scheme in government ever. But now BC is realizing that after, I don't know, the better part of 2 decades of telling you that the carbon tax, not only will it save the earth and reduce emissions, which it didn't, but it actually won't cost you any more. Now they're saying, yeah, no, it's getting too expensive. So I guess it was costing everybody something all along.
Oh, it was costing something all along. And what does this mean for what it's actually doing for the climate change emergency? But let's not forget the elephant in the room here, which is we are about to go into election. So that's what this is really about, right? British Columbia's election is on October 19th. And all of a sudden, Premier Eby, who was one of only a couple premiers who didn't join in on Pierre Poilievre's fight the tax or axe the tax campaign that he was doing, all of them said, we're going to fight it. And do you remember what Eby said? He said, I don't live in the Pierre Poilievre baloney factory, and went on to say why canceling the tax would mean it would be more expensive for British Columbians. So there's so much hypocrisy here, including the fact that they have been, on a side note, their whole party is sort of sneering their competitor, John Rustad of the Conservative Party of BC, as climate deniers. So they were staunch supporters of the tax. And then now all of a sudden, just before the election, we don't need it.
Yeah, they keep telling me we're in some sort of climate emergency, but nobody cares about a climate emergency when you're in the cost of living emergency, right?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like caring about climate change is a really, really, really first world thing. If indeed you think it's happening at all, and I don't. I'm a farmer. I make my living by the weather. And so I should be more concerned about this than anybody, and I don't think it's a thing. But I see the Conservative Party of BC.
Yeah.
They're taking a victory lap. And they should.
As they should.
As they should, because they've been called climate deniers and cavemen and science deniers who don't follow the science and don't trust the experts. And all of a sudden, the NDP joins them, and they issued a statement saying, and this is from John Rustad, the leader, who's one of the winningest people in politics in Canada right now, because he's like collapsing the competition, rolling it into the fold, getting the NDP to walk back their support of their flagship legislation, the carbon tax. Like when you think of the carbon tax in BC, or when you think of the BC NDP, here's what I think of. Drugs, literally everywhere, homelessness, and the carbon tax. That's the thing. Those are the things, right?
And sexually indoctrinating kids. Don't forget that one.
Right. And drag shows.
Yeah.
What a legacy. People can't afford a house in the Lower Mainland. But yeah, go ahead and say what John Rustad said.
Well, I just love it. It's right there in the title where he slams Eby as a flip-flopping liar. It's just so, we got to put that in a headline ourselves, quoting him. But he says, David Eby has lied to British Columbians before, and he'll do it again. He's flip-flopped on this because he's losing ground. And if reelected, he'll waste no time reversing his position on the tax. And basically, British Columbians deserve something more stable. And he goes on there. But it's totally true. The Conservative Party was very quick to come out and join the fight to axe the tax. And just how smug Eby, it wasn't just that Eby didn't participate in that. He was so smug about it in doing so. And here he is with his tail between his legs, because he is losing ground in popularity just before the polls.
Yeah, further down that statement says that David Eby's sudden reversal on the carbon tax is a desperate attempt to salvage his sinking political ship, said Rustad. Let's be clear, Eby has spent years championing this disastrous tax that punishes families and businesses. Now, faced with growing opposition, he's pretending to care. It's nothing more than a cynical ploy. I'm really enjoying, frankly, and we'll get to it a little bit later on in the show, all these people actually using the word lying to describe people who are actually lying. For once, usually it's like, oh, he's unfamiliar with the truth, or the things he's saying are incompatible with reality. Now we're just calling everybody liars, and I like that they're cutting through the BS.
Yeah, we've had enough BS, haven't we? So cut right through it. And actually, Singh is doing the same thing. Let's not forget that. Singh is backpedaling as well now. It was, I will not support it, or it's too much for, the everyday people that he pretends his party still represents. When he has supported the carbon tax, I want to say like 20 different times, right? Like,
yes. Yeah, God, he's looking terrible these days too. Look at his skin looks just sallow, and I don't think he's doing well. Maybe it's the mustard color of his turban that's washing him out, but I think he looks tired and just rattled every time he makes a public appearance these days. Yeah, Globe Politics, their headline today is signals NDP plan to oppose carbon tax, says it puts burden on the backs of working people.
You think?
So what does that mean? You think? But even if they shift it, even if they shift the carbon tax over to the producers, like say they say, okay, well, we're going to tax big oil. Okay, what do you think that's going to do to the price of fuel? What do you think that's going to do? We're going to tax the electricity companies. Okay, what do you think that's going to do to the cost of turning on the light switch? Like, they don't pay it. Every tax is shoved. The thing about the carbon tax is it's added on every step of the way. So it's added on to the what it was already added on. So it goes down the entire supply chain. But even if you try to move it from the bottom of the supply chain and stick it on at the top, it still gets added on all the way down because it increases the cost of fuel, and that increases the cost of transportation, and that increases the cost of cooling, heating, whatever. And that also increases the cost of housing, bricks and mortar. You know, it just everything. Oh, what is going on in my house? There's somebody fell down up there or whatever. But it just adds, I don't know what's going on. But it just adds the cost all the way down, but leave it to the socialists to not understand supply and demand and basic economics.
Well, and I can't find the article now, but he said, it's doing, it's basically doing nothing instead of focusing on who really is causing the issue. How many years have we been saying that they're not focusing on where the actual problem is coming from?
China.
And now,
India.
And now that he's just saying it like he just realized it now. Like, it's so annoying.
Like it's an original thought.
Yeah.
Like it's an original thought.
It's going to be an original thought for so many people because the state media never says that. So now they're repeating that, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, I never thought about that."
Yeah, what a new and intriguing argument that the Conservatives have been making for a very long time. And don't get me wrong, I actually don't think that carbon emissions are a problem. I'm concerned about real pollution, particulates, CFCs. That's the stuff that China's been up to, and I think we should deal with that. And until such time as somebody deals with China and decides it's no longer a developing nation, but the world's second largest economy, and they should be bound by the same rules as the rest of us, I'm not interested in hearing any of this stuff.
But what about cow farts, Sheila? Cows fart.
What about cows? That's another thing. The oil industry is not great at telling its own story. Neither are farmers. It's because we're too busy growing food. But grazing cattle sequesters carbon if you care about carbon, but it fertilizes vast tracts of grassland, and grassland grows and pulls carbon out of the atmosphere. And cows have really only replaced the vast herds of ruminants that used to roam North America, bison, elk, deer, whatever. They used to roam. Now we have a different animal that roams, although closer to home. It's just a cycle. And they figure that agriculture and animals are just sort of new on the face of the earth in the last 100 years, and it's not.
Yeah.
All right. We've got a video from Public Services Minister Yaniv who says Poilieve and the Conservatives won an election. Well, that's true, because they're worried Canadians are understanding the great value of carbon pricing after the Trudeau Liberals rebranded the carbon tax as a rebate. I think I think Canadians understand it just fine, and that's why the Liberals don't want an election.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a great question that you ask about carbon pricing. Now, the one reason for which Pierre Poilieve might want to have an election very soon on the tax and carbon pricing is that he's starting to feel the change in Canadians' understanding of the great value of that carbon pricing. Now, we have changed the name now to make it better understood that there's a carbon rebate that comes with carbon pricing. Now, if you look at the numbers, you note that Canadians understand much better now in September 2024 that 8 out of 10 of Canadians receive more in their pockets than they pay through the carbon price. Now that's not good news for Pierre Poilieve.
Oh my gosh. And the eye contact, it's like, you must believe every lie that's coming out of my mouth. I mean, it goes back to what you said about you get hit everywhere. If you get a rebate, it doesn't matter. Everywhere you go is more expensive because of this. And to twist it to think that, oh my gosh, we must have an election now. Canadians don't need an election to know that everything is becoming so expensive and something needs to be done about that.
I'm just digging up the most recent polling on the carbon tax, and it has been consistently unpopular.
Yeah.
At least over the last year, like as we're just being hammered by inflation. You know, when I used to be able to go to the grocery store and look, I got a family of 5, sometimes 7, depending on how frequently my mid-20s son decides to come over for dinner. My grocery bill has gone up 50% easily in the last year, like easily. My kids are food furnaces, so it's unusual, but I mean, it's my grocery bill is already high, and it's higher than it has ever been. And on 7 in 10 Canadians oppose a carbon tax hike. That's from this spring.
That's believable.
And that was just before the hike came out. From November 16th, 2023, 42% of Canadians at the time wanted the carbon tax to be scrapped altogether. And it keeps going. Nearly half of Canadians think the carbon tax is ineffective. That's from last December. And it just keeps going as the carbon tax, as people are continuing to realize the effects of the last carbon tax hike, ironically on April 1st, when the fools were all Canadians. It just keeps getting worse and worse for the Liberals. So for Yaniv Duclos to stand there and lie and say that Canadians are understanding the value of it, yeah, we're understanding how much it's costing us, which is different than understanding the value. It's not saving the planet. It's making Canadians poorer for negligible. And actually not even negligible. Emissions are not going down. They're just not going down. So it's not even doing the thing it's been designed to do.
Well, it's interesting that Poilieve said for months now that this was going to be a carbon tax election. And now it seems that the other side is acknowledging that too. I mean, even with that bogus excuse, they're still saying, oh, this is why the election needs to happen. It's definitely a big issue, and Canadians have had enough. So
I think it's going to be more than I think it's going to be more than a carbon tax election, though. Like, sure, that's the one thing. That's the one thing that is making a lot of center-left voters rethink where they've parked their vote. But I think it's a cost of living election. And all of those things are falling behind it. So the carbon tax, which is increasing the cost of living, out of control immigration, which is driving up housing, driving down wages, and putting strain on our infrastructure, including our health system. It's a temporary foreign workers election. Like it's everything around the cost of living. And people are saying, I'm way poorer than I was. I'm making more money, but I'm taking home less. And I have less in the bank.
The middle class is becoming no more.
Yeah. We've got a quick video from Justin Trudeau, again on the carbon tax. He's boasting about his world-leading carbon tax. And he's calling out Jagmeet Singh for caving to political pressures from Conservative Leader Pierre Poilieve. I don't think Jagmeet Singh gave in to political pressure from Poilieve. I think he gave in to political pressure from polling data.
Yeah.
Pakistani citizen Mohammed Khan was arrested last week over alleged ISIS plot to kill Jews in New York. Recently, a father and son in Toronto from Egypt were arrested.
I think that's a different one.
That's an important one too, but
yeah, I think that's a different one. We'll get to that at the end. Do you have that clip of him being asked about his world-leading carbon tax? We don't have to do it. We can hit it
in the
break.
same. Yeah, it was the same question period.
Yeah, I think we got it. Okay, Olivia says we'll skip it, but I'm sure you folks at home know exactly what he's going to say. You know, it's our carbon tax. It's the best thing since sliced bread, even though you can't afford the electricity to run the bread slicer. like it's just so nonsensical. I think we have an ad break and then something labeled, a portion of the show labeled crack pipe update.
Which means it's about British Columbia.
I was going to say it must be BC. So let's hit that ad break.
Here is my kind of passport, folks. Look at this beauty. Introducing a new special edition Freedom Passport. What if the greatest teacher of all time framed his message as a constitution for a kingdom of love, faith, and freedom? Inspired by Jesus' teachings in the Sermon on the Mount, this special edition Freedom Passport captures the foundational truths of love and freedom for all. It's a powerful reminder of Jesus' call to love one another that you can carry with you every day. Join the movement, share the truth, and spread the love with your family and friends. Get your Freedom Passport today at freedompassport.ca. That's freedompassport.ca. All orders in North America come with free shipping and a complimentary song with each purchase.
When the panel said, listen, give it to 6-month-old babies with zero assurances this possibly would be safe, I said, where were you the day when the WHO came out and said, do not use remdesivir in the hospital? I'm Dr. Peter McCullough. Join me for an evening together. Tickets are on sale now.
It's the news event of the year. Canada's most controversial premier sits down with Canada's most controversial journalist, and everything is on the table. Come watch Ezra Levant one-on-one with Alberta Premier Danielle Smith in front of a live studio audience in Calgary. Nothing's off limits. Nothing's held back. Questions that would make Justin Trudeau invoke martial law. Answers that will make Stephen Guilbeault pee his pants. You're not going to want to miss this one, but you have to be there in person at the Rebel News Live mega conference in Calgary on October the 5th. Tickets are limited, so drop everything and go to rebelnewslive.com right now. Special discounted prices for Patriots and special extra high prices if you're with the CBC. Go to rebelnewslive.com now.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Ezra sit down with the premier in a bit of a fireside chat, because he's not going to let her off the hook on some things that she said and done, or the not ask the tough questions that Conservatives want her to answer, because I think it is our job as Conservative journalists or right of center journalists or whatever, accountability journalists, to pull the premier back right sometimes, because all the forces of the universe are working to pull her to the left. The mainstream media, the CBC, the culture, other political parties, they're trying to pull her to the center and then to the left where she will fail. It's our job to make sure that she remembers who sent her there and why. With regard to Dr. Peter McCullough in Whitby, that's tomorrow. So if you don't have tickets yet and you're in the Toronto area, wait till the show's over, then go get your tickets. Go to canadiansfortruth.ca/events. I heard him speak in Red Deer a couple of months ago. I cannot recommend it enough. Great. Crack pipe update. Drea, that's from your province. The Sodom and Gomorrah to the west of us. Let us know what's happening.
You know, I really miss the days where you'd see something on social media, like a video, and go, that can't be real. And then you'd spend a little bit of time and you're like, okay, it's not real. Yeah, that doesn't happen much anymore. It's just real. So those of you might have already seen my report where a Conservative candidate for British Columbia, former NDP actually, Gwen O'Mahony, just walked up and showed the world that on the taxpayer's dime, you could walk up to the Nanaimo Hospital and just with, I think she said 2 or 3 steps, there she is, and get your free crack pipe in front of the emergency room there, and your free coke snorting kit, and the kicker, instructions on how to do drugs. And I love what Gwen O'Mahony said when I interviewed her, or during her speech at the event I was at. She said something like, addicts know how to do drugs, so who are they giving instructions to? Like, who are the instructions for? So madness. And again,
New users.
Yeah, so these have been in place. They cost about $2,000 a month to lease. I don't know how much they cost to fill. And of course, after that video went viral, and EB, just like the carbon tax, all of a sudden, oh no, we have to have a review. I mean, they've been there, not just at this hospital, it was at a Victoria hospital too, and it was taken down. The legacy media says, or the excuse that Island Health gave, was that it was taken down because it could have been like an issue if there was a fire. However, there are reports of staff saying that they were being hassled. If there was no crack pipe in the machine for them to sell to a kid to get drugs or something like that, they were getting hassled. Where's the crack pipes? Where's the crack pipes? So what's interesting about this is EB initially said, after that video went viral, okay, we're going to review this. We're going to look into it. But the machines were supposed to stay in place. And now we see with new news here that the harm reduction kiosks have been pulled from the BC hospitals. So while this sort of investigation is still happening, he's like, pull them out. I'm sick of people probably talking about it. And I think, again, it's all very connected to the election rather than being connected to what's best for the people. One of the things here in this article that stood out to me was the leader of the Green Party's comment. Where is it? Sonia. How do you pronounce her last name? You're good with that French name you did earlier.
I don't know. Yaniv Duclos.
Yaniv Duclos. Oh, it might have been towards the bottom. I'm looking for it, but essentially she says, oh, it's so sad that these machines are going. And when they say that, they focus on the fact that they also have naloxone kits in them, which nobody's complaining about. Nobody's complaining about that, but they focus on that. And she says, oh, this is so sad that this should be there. Are we finding her comment?
Yeah.
Oh, there
BC
it
Green
is.
Party, yeah, BC Green Party leader Sonia Furstenau told the Tyee in an emailed statement her party is deeply concerned about the removal of a, quote, evidence-based solution to fill a service gap, such as for people who needed to access harm reduction supplies. These are not harm reduction supplies. These are like to help you harm yourself outside of a hospital or medical clinic's operating hours.
Right. And not only that, where is the evidence to support that giving any of these things without medical professionals there to help the person, that there is no evidence to support that that's safe, that you could just walk up, learn how to use drugs, get the tools, and then, I don't know, cross the street to a drug dealer.
I don't want doctors helping people do fentanyl at all.
No, but
like, I'm just like, get back into the emergency room. Kid's got a broken arm.
What I'm getting at is there's no evidence to support that you should be able to just go do these things without a professional there to make sure it's safe. I mean, there is evidence, whether you agree with it or not, to support what they're trying to say for the safe supply. So that's what I'm saying. They do not have evidence that it's just there and you can do that. But the other thing is, if she's so upset and her party's so upset, perhaps this could just go in front of her house. I mean, that might be.
Yeah, sure. If you build it, they will come.
Exactly. Yeah, maybe that problem solved.
Is there any? I can't even fathom these. You see, I live in a province where we care about recovery, and we don't do this. We build treatment beds. This is what we do. We build treatment beds. We'll come and get you, and we'll put you in a treatment bed, and we'll keep you. And we've removed all the barriers to treatment, so there's no you don't have to pay. You just can go, and we're ramping up thousands upon thousands of treatment beds. We're putting them on reserve wherever they need to be. So this is foreign to me, but is there any requirement to show like proof of age, or can like a 13-year-old who's like, I'm curious about drugs, this is going to give me instructions on how to do it, but I don't have a crack pipe. How do I get one? See, like a kid can just go up there and get one. Are there these are free, by the way?
That's what I mean, I don't know if they ask your age, but I do know you do not have to prove anything that you're doing. I haven't seen this personally, but from the people who have, a kid can go up and do it. And in fact, in Gwen O'Mahony's video, you can actually hear little kids like screaming or playing in the background while she's standing there. But of course, Island Health is like, this is an area where there's not many kids. It's like, it's a hospital. So yes, kids end up going there. And so do people who are, struggling with addiction, and now they have to walk by, on their way out. Hey, here, pick me. You're forgetting something.
The kiosks were set up on Vancouver Island last fall. It's not even a year, and collectively dispensed 18,253 items. The kiosk at the Nanaimo Hospital alone dispensed 8,580 items. I
wonder which items. Yeah.
Probably. There was another vending machine
gone.
At Victoria General Hospital, which was closed mid-December due to the chaos it created, due to challenges with the location related to constrained space. So the mob of drug addicts trying to use it, and fire alarm activity. So they were just pulling the fire alarm for funsies, I guess. Good grief.
Jeez. Yeah.
You guys got to do something different over there. That's another thing that he's flip-flopped on, by the way, Evie. Remember when he was like, yeah, we should give drugs to all the addicts, and then they're like, oh, everybody's addicted now and overdoses are skyrocketing. Maybe we shouldn't do safe supply.
Well, decriminalization, it only correlated with way more overdoses. So now he recriminalized it. But the thought that he actually thought it was okay for these users to be using bike parks and things like that and nobody to be able to stop them is just ludicrous. Yes, he's flip-flopped on that. You got to ask, what exactly is the NDP's goal here? Like, I mean, without being a conspiracy theorist, what are you expecting to happen when you completely remove all barriers and enable anyone, not only who is an active user, but maybe is just curious, wants to learn what's about? I might as well just go to that machine right over there. It's nuts.
Do you know what it is? The NDP now is not the NDP party of yore, in that the NDP party used to be sort of a blue collar poor man's party. And it's not that anymore. It's fancy champagne socialists and career students who are among the most privileged people in the entire country, looking at poor people and saying, oh, I've never been poor, but I think I know what's best for those poor people and those drug addicts. Instead of looking at somebody,
I'm an ally of poor people.
Yeah, I'm an ally of poor people, and I know what's best. So there's like this heavy element of paternalism in all of it, and the bigotry of low expectations. You see those drug addicts, they're never going to get clean. They're not good enough to get clean. They're not smart enough to get clean. So instead of helping them get clean and achieve their human potential, let's give up on them and just keep them addicted. It is the bigotry of low expectations. They've never been poor. They've never actually encountered a drug addict. They certainly don't have them in their families. But regardless of their inexperience in all of those issues, they think they know what's best. That's what it is. They think they're the smartest people in the room. Instead of asking people who have recovered from poverty and addiction what they need to do to solve the problem.
Which we have done. We have done that. I recently went down to East Hastings, and when Dr. Bonnie Henry wanted to make it so that you could just go to the store and get drugs, again, without any sort of professional and without it being behind a counter. And, some of the people were like, yeah, that sounds good. But a lot of them were like, yeah, no, that's crazy. What about the kids?
Yeah. I mean, in Alberta, almost our entire staff in the in the legislature office in our addictions and mental health ministry, save for the minister himself, are in active recovery. So these are people who know what it takes to get clean and the supports that people need to get clean and thus achieve your potential, working in a ministry for the government to get other people clean. And it's working in Alberta. Our overdose rates have dropped 50% over the course of a year.
Wow.
So everybody who looked down their smug noses at taking a recovery focused approach, lives are being saved. And you save the life of one drug addict, it's a ripple. It's like a stone being thrown into a pond. It changes the lives of everybody around them. Okay, let's moving on from that. Let's go into asylum seekers. Unless we wanted to hit an ad break, Olivia, I'll leave that up to you. I think maybe we do want to hit an ad. Okay, perfect. So we've got a message from Neutronics Labs. Discover the natural solution to low testosterone levels from Man's Edge from Neutronics Labs. Our generation, and as a woman on the internet, I know this to be true. Our generation faces a testosterone crisis due to lifestyle, diet, and the toxins in the environment leading to fatigue and weight gain. Man's Edge combines fenugreek, IGF-1, NO2, and more, offering more than a standard booster. Studies show a 46% increase in testosterone levels with fenugreek. Unlike powders and pills, Man's Edge ensures up to 98% absorption. Even Frank Stallone trusts Man's Edge to keep him at his best and feeling like a young man. Save 50% on all your orders when you join AutoShip. Reclaim your vitality at neutronicslabs.com. Do this for yourself, but do it for the women around you. Strong men make women safe. Go to neutronicslabs.com for your subscription today. Okay, let's go into what we've dubbed the asylum seekers portion of the show. I'm just going to scroll back up. So we have Justin Trudeau taking more asylum seekers than ever, despite Canadians crying out for some common sense immigration levels, at least till our housing infrastructure, wages,
Jobs.
Jobs, healthcare system catches up to the increased burden of, 2 million extra people being dumped into our country every single year. And in New Brunswick, Premier Blaine Higgs, who despite his failings during COVID, and there were many, has made a miraculous recovery into conservatism. He's standing strong on parents' rights. And now he is opposing the Liberals promising to send 4,600 asylum seekers to New Brunswick without any financial support. He said provincial officials were invited to a conference call-in in which it was shared by federal officials in Ottawa that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government is considering a plan. See, they'll just do it to you, but they're not going to do it with you. To send 4,600 asylum seekers to New Brunswick without providing any federal financial assistance. This is an increase of more than 10 times our current level of asylum seekers. And they're just like, here, Blaine Higgs, your problem. And Blaine Higgs is saying, the hell you will. So I enjoy that.
Well, and he's not alone in saying no. Your premier is saying no too, right?
So we are in Alberta. We're booming. Our economy is booming, and that's thanks in no small part to our Conservative government. And we do have these ads all around Canada, including in the GTA. They're ads called Alberta is Calling. We would like you to come if you are an internal asylum seeker from Toronto. You know what I mean? If you are a Toronto resident and you would like to live more affordably and be able to afford a house and maybe a vacation and earn a wage that goes a little bit further without a provincial sales tax, you know what I mean? Where you can get something more than a garden shed for $1 million. And we're inviting you to come to Alberta to help us grow our economy. However, we don't want asylum seekers here because, and it's not to say that we don't want asylum seekers, but don't send us a bunch that Justin Trudeau has invited into the country without the additional supports that asylum seekers require. ESL, like English as a second language, job training. No, we're happy to help trained, skilled fellow Canadians. We want you here. Come here and work. But asylum seekers do cause a burden on our infrastructure, our healthcare. And my Premier Daniel Smith said Alberta's government is opposed to the federal government's plan to relocate tens of thousands of asylum claimants to Alberta, especially without any financial assistance to support the province in doing so. Alberta has always welcomed newcomers who possess our shared values, and we will continue to do so. However, last year alone, at an all-time record of over 200,000 people moved to Alberta. That's like adding 2 new Red Deer-sized cities in just 1 year. Although Alberta represents only 11.8% of the Canadian population, we are currently supporting over 22%, over 70,000 of Ukrainian evacuees who arrived in Canada. I'm going to stop right here. We're the best place to do it. Why? They're culturally compatible with Alberta. There are many schools who offer Ukrainian immersion just because it makes more sense in Alberta, given the people who settled here, 70, 80, 100 years ago, many of them being Ukrainian. Often, like Ukrainian is still spoken in the home by the grandparents, by Papa and Guido, or Guido and Baba. So it makes sense to resettle them here, and they'll hit the ground running. Churches are here to support them. I go to St. Sophia's Church. It's in Ukrainian. So it's the best place for them. Section 95 of the Constitution is clear. Immigration is a shared authority between the federal government and the provinces, yet the Trudeau government's unrestrained open border policies permitting well over 1 million newcomers each year in Canada is causing significant challenges, and it's simply not sustainable. Excessive levels of immigration to this province are increasing the cost of living and strains public services for everyone. We're informing the government of Canada that until further notice, Alberta is not open to having these additional asylum seekers settled in our province. We simply cannot afford it. Okay.
And you know who's not putting out a statement? Take a wild guess. Who's not putting out? BC. And we're being told that we're going to get 32,000 asylum seekers. I was looking it up, and back in 2017, 32,000 was the number that had arrived to Canada as a whole by September, so within 9 months of the year. And we're getting 32,000, and not a peep from Premier Eby about that one. So
I know. And again, they're just going to do it to you. They don't even care. And so multiple provinces have spoken out. Blaine Higgs, Alberta. Don't pay as close attention to Saskatchewan as I should, and I think I pay more attention to it than most people in this province, but I'm sure Scott Moe has said or will say something very similar to Alberta. And yet, Immigration Minister Mark Miller says, you know what, if you don't want them, you're getting them anyway, and if you refuse to cooperate, we're just going to put them all up in a hotel near you. So let's go to that clip.
But we've never said anything of the sort. Well, look, right now we could open up a hotel in any particular province and ship people there. That's an option. We have been moving people around to relieve pressure from Ontario and Quebec. It's not a financially viable model. It's not an effective model, but it's one that needs some reform in order to make sure the provinces are stepping up, looking at what their labor force needs are, what the capacity is to help some of these folks as they wait the determination of their protected person status. And it's one where we actually need coordination with provinces. Most of the provinces are at the table talking to us about what these models would be. It's far from being complete. But again, there's only so far the federal government can actually be nice and say, please, please, we also have levers that we need to pull and push. And provinces do get the benefit from immigration. So it's something that we need to deal with in a responsible fashion, and we expect every single province to be responsible.
Or you could just not allow them asylum in this country. You could do that too. Like, that's a thing you could do. Instead of saying that, look, we can play nice with the provinces, or we could just cram this policy down your throat. You choose. You could also just tighten up the numbers of immigrants being allowed into this country in any number of ways. And one of the largest groups saying it's time to tighten up the numbers is immigrants themselves.
Yeah.
They're like, we can't afford to live. You told us if we came to Canada, we would be able to work hard and perhaps achieve a life somehow befitting of the work we put in. But you're not allowing us to do that because you keep bringing in more people.
Well, we've covered that, where they're like, what is it's a lie, and then they're warning people from back home not to come. It's like,
I know, or they're like, we're leaving, we're going back.
And the hotel thing. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. No.
No, I was just going to say the hotel thing too. I put a link in there, but I'm not sure if there's a good clip to play while I'm saying this, but that was the Abbotsford Hotel. That was a hotspot for the migrants. And when, I walked around and tried to look around there, I saw mostly middle-aged men walking around. I tried to talk to some. They didn't really speak English. So there was obviously a barrier there, but it's like, and they're in these suites too. They're getting suites and hotels and phones and like it's just yep, we'll just shove them in a hotel.
Yeah. And by the way, if I were to book a room in that hotel, would they tell me, like, look, there's a whole host of
I don't think so. It looked like they had one floor that you could just rent, and then the rest was just people walking around that are like, okay, like, where am I? So yeah,
it was like that with the COVID jail hotels.
Yeah, right.
Where like one floor was dedicated to being the COVID jail, but like floors 1, 3, and 4 you could just rent, and you had no idea that floor 2 was the COVID jail.
And not only that, I remember covering how so if you were sent to quarantine jail from the airport, you were sent via a taxi. Remember, I interviewed a taxi driver who's sitting there waiting for the biohazard humans to come in his taxi. He's not cleaning it probably properly, and he's taking them back and forth. And it's like, what is this? Oh,
well, and nonsense. If you were sent to COVID jail, you paid the inflated like COVID jail price. But if you were just like staying at the 3-star Calgary hotel, it was like your standard $179 a night. Like it was just crazy.
Wow.
Another problem with taking in all these asylum seekers is the failure of the government to vet them. As we have seen, we had an ISIS terrorist and his son planning a machete attack on Toronto Jews. And by the grace of God and the good work of the French, the Canadians were tipped off and prevented it from happening. And then now quickly, because of our failure to screen asylum seekers, one of Canada's major imports, besides oil and gas and maple syrup, is now terrorism. So we had a terrorist in Canada plotting to kill Jews in New York City after entering Canada on a student visa. But somehow Justin Trudeau thinks that this is an example of how the system works and not a failing of his system.
Pakistani citizen Mohammed Khan was arrested last week over alleged ISIS plot to kill Jews in New York. Recently, a father and son in Toronto from Egypt were arrested facing similar allegations. Why in both cases did foreign intelligence detect the threats before Canada did? And what kind of work is being done to ensure no more alleged ISIS supporters have entered Canada on false pretenses?
First of all, this is an extraordinarily serious situation, and it highlights just how effective our security services and institutions are. That we were able to interdict these very, very potentially devastating situations. We work with partners around the world as a Five Eyes country, sharing intelligence, and there's many situations in which Canadian intelligence has been important to partners around the world, but all of us are confronting similar threats of violent extremism and radicalism that requires us to be vigilant. We are constantly making sure that our security services and intelligence agencies are keeping Canadians safe, whether it's through vetting people wanting to come to Canada or ensuring that people here are not threatening to cause harm to other Canadians. And we will continue to step up our investments and our support of all the women and men in Canada, and indeed working for Canada around the world that are fighting to keep us safe.
If that's a success of the system, I'd love to see a failure.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you've got terrorists in your country. Oh, oh, thank God you told me. Like, what the heck? It's just how it's been
coming
everything.
in on a student visa system. I watched the hearings on the ISIS terrorist with Dominic LeBlanc, who's the public safety minister, talking about how the fact that this person was apprehended was actually a a success of the system and that everybody did a really good job. And then you got CBSA officials patting themselves on the back saying, see, it worked. And it's like, that guy was in an ISIS video in 2015 hacking at a crucified prisoner with a sword. And then somehow in 2017, he applies for a visitor's visa. The only thing that worked properly was that he was denied that visitor's visa because they said he was not a legitimate visitor. But by 2018, they gave him a visitor's visa. He comes on a visitor's visa and applies for asylum once he gets here, which is not allowed. And then he gets his temporary work permit and his permanent residency. So he's working. Then he's able to bring over his son. And then he gets his citizenship in spring of this year. By the summer, he's ready to hack Jews apart. And the only reason it didn't happen was because French officials flagged it to Canadian officials. Otherwise, for sure, it was happening. And everyone's saying, see, look at success story. Nobody died. And it's like, by the skin of their teeth, nobody died.
Grace of God.
Yep. Anyway, we've got a couple more quick little things to talk about. Jagmeet Singh. So the chaos in our airline system continues. I don't think it's ever fully recovered from the damage done to it by the lockdowns. And now there's an Air Canada strike looming. And Jagmeet Singh says that he's going to vote against any back to work legislation from the Trudeau Liberals, even if it triggers a non-confidence vote, because the Conservatives will surely attach a confidence motion to the vote, which means that the government could fall on a confidence issue and trigger an election. So, I mean, I doubt it. I doubt it. I doubt that he's going to vote for the government to fall because he needs that pension.
Yep. How much is it? Is it 2 million something or something?
It's 2 million over the course of his lifetime. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there a video? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a video.
I said this to Justin Trudeau, years ago when I was fighting to force Justin Trudeau and the Liberals to deliver things like dental care, that if you ever make back to work legislation a confidence vote, we will always vote against that. So you can never count on our support. Whatever you say, you want to make it a confidence vote, make it one. We're still going to vote against it because we oppose undermining working people.
Didn't we just go through this with like the railway workers? It was like another sellout Singh moment, I think.
I think he's going to, I think he might personally abstain from the vote. I don't think he wants the government to fall because he needs his pension. He needs to get all the way through to the next election to qualify for a pension, regardless
extra
of the damage.
8 days. They moved the election 8 days or something like that for that. So
regardless of the hell he's putting Canadians through and the damage, what did Michael Barrett call it at committee yesterday? Economic vandalism by the Trudeau government, which I thought was a great phrase. But I doubt that Singh is going to vote to have the government fall. I mean, he's a flip-flopper, right? All of a sudden he's Mr. Carbon Taxes Save the Planet, and then he's like, no, it's the carbon tax is hurting the working man. So which version of sellout Singh are we going to get today? I suppose is the question we need to ask. Speaking of Michael Barrett at committee, so one of my jobs here at Rebel News is watching the committee hearings, and they're on any number of things, but it's where the real action happens in the House of Commons, because the House of Commons really question period is kind of theater, right? Yeah. Nobody answers any questions. There are ways to get your questions answered in the House of Commons, and it's really not in question period. It's through what's called an order paper question, or in these committee hearings where they will call witnesses, sometimes even put witnesses under oath, where they are cross-examined by an all parties committee. And OGO is one of my favorites because it touches on everything. It's the operations, government operations, OGO, I forget. It's like the French and English acronym. And they have been looking into how and why and when actually came up yesterday. The Consul General of New York, Justin Trudeau's longtime media buddy, Tom Clark, who once famously asked Justin Trudeau, what sort of shampoo do you use?
Right. Yeah.
How he became I think how he became the Consul General is sort of makes perfect sense. He's Justin Trudeau's media buddy, and that's what you do with your media buddies. You just give them patronage appointments or appoint them to the Senate, as the case may be. So he's the Consul General. He's Canada's representative in New York. So he gets appointed Consul General. Then Justin Trudeau visits him in April, I think it's 27th of this past year. And there are pictures of them in a motorcade together, and they're sort of bragging, and traffic's all stopped. Almost instantly, right after, they start shopping for a new luxury New York City apartment for the Consul General. They say it is so that it has more space to hold official events. But if you look at the blueprints and the real estate listings, there's actually less space and more living space for Mr. Tom Clark, who they broke down what the mortgage would be. If you were a regular person paying this mortgage, it's a $9 million luxury condo. I think the coffee machine there is $6,000.
Yeah, the fridge was like 13,000.
Yeah, the oven is like 18,000 or 16,000. Like, it's wild. So he had to testify. They call him the $9 million man, Tom Clark. And Justin Trudeau visits him in the old place shortly after his appointment. Nearly instantly, you can see in the emails, Global Affairs is shopping for a new place for him. Almost instantly. And he says, oh, I wasn't involved. And they're like, oh, did you go to look at their emails saying he's very helpful and he's very involved between Global Affairs and him. And he's like, I wasn't involved. They're like, did you tour the new place? Yes. But you were mute the whole time? Yes. like literally, I'm like what? Michael Barrett, who's really a star at Ogo, between him and Larry Brock, whichever one of them becomes the new AG, I'll be happy. I think it should be Larry Brock because he used to be a Crown prosecutor, so he takes that sort of sensibilities to examining these witnesses. But Michael Barrett always really puts on a show. He's a real pleasure to watch because some of these committees can be slightly boring, but he puts on a show. For example, he told Tom Clark yesterday, don't unpack your bags because Conservatives are going to fire you. Just made me happy. But he asked Tom Clark, Canadians are facing a cost of living crisis right now. Didn't you think it was a bad look to be getting why didn't you object? Even if he says he was like sort of an unwitting bystander in the purchase of a new place, which is outrageous. But he's like, didn't you even consider that it was a bad look? I should tell you how much it costs though. If a normal person bought this with a normal Canadian mortgage, $42,000 a month is the mortgage payment on this place. And that doesn't even factor in the condo fees. There's like a putting green, a swimming pool, like a pickleball court. Like it's just crazy. And you know what Tom Clark pays in rent for his living space there?
No, what?
$1,800.
No, you can't even get where I live, you can't even get a 1-bedroom apartment for that. Or I guess that's probably the price of a 1-bedroom.
Especially not in New York Central Park, which is where he is.
Goodness, yeah.
And they asked him like, hey, Tom, who do you think's paying the rest of that? And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, it's us, Tom. It's us, you idiot. But anyways, well, let's show this clip because he's asked like, hey, don't you feel like this is maybe a bad look? And he's like, well, I understand the people are struggling. Okay.
Do you?
Do you really?
Did you ever take a moment as someone who spent a career in journalism to question the Prime Minister or anyone on the opulence of this location amid the backdrop of the cost of living crisis that we're facing here in Canada? StatsCan saying that 1 in 4 Canadians are going to be using food banks to feed themselves and their families this month. Did that ever occur to you?
As I said in my opening statement, Mr. Chair, I am well aware of the challenges being faced by both Canadians and Americans when it comes to housing. In this case, I was not involved in any way, shape, or form in the decision to buy this new residence or sell the old residence. And that is entirely in the hands of the property division of Global Affairs.
When you host functions at the event, Do you personally prepare the food? Is it done by your personal chef, or are these events catered?
I do not have a personal chef, nor do I cook the food, thankfully.
So these are catered affairs, because we were told by the Real Property Division that the necessity for this was that the shared space that you have at the office that you're in now wasn't suitable to host functions because there wasn't a kitchen to prepare meals. So if the meals are being brought in, couldn't they be brought into your office that you're speaking to us from now?
The bylaws of New York City prohibit us from having a working kitchen in the office. It would be illegal, in fact, for us to put a working kitchen in this office.
If it's catered, it seems moot whether or not you have a kitchen in there.
Oh my gosh.
It just went on and on like that. Like, they have emails. The Conservatives have emails that show Global Affairs saying, like, Tom Clark has been very helpful, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, I had no part of this. And then he's like, I'm referring you back to the Real Property Department of Global Affairs. And they're like, that's where we got the emails.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm a little bit speechless there.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know how you could do it. I'm reminded of Trump not taking his paycheck there when I think of that.
Yeah.
I like how he said, you've had a career in journalism. Did you ever question this?
Yeah. There were other issues, like my MP, Gardit Jennis, he sort of takes these committees in his own direction sometimes, because he's like, I got these witnesses here. I'm going to ask all the questions, not even just on this topic. So there is the head of Shopify. Before Tom Clark became the consul general, he sat on the board, or he sat on the panel that makes recommendations to appoint people to the board of the CBC. He's the guy who requested that Catherine Tate, the current head of the CBC, who lives in New York, probably visits him quite frequently and commutes back and forth to Canada, and who takes a bonus even though the ratings are just collapsing in on themselves like a dying star. He recommended her. But he also, as it turns out, recommended the head of Shopify to sit on the board. I forget his first name, Harley. I think it's Harley Finkelstein. But when you know it, when he was recommended, Mr. Finkelstein, 2 of Tom Clark's kids worked for him. And he didn't even recuse himself from suggesting that the guy who employs his kids go on the board of the CBC.
Conflict of interest. Surprise, surprise.
The story of this government. Okay, I know we're way past, and I have to do some things, and I know Drea's got a busy day too. Let's get into some of these chats. You want to do them, Drea?
Sure. The first one is from Ryerson Gary, donates $5. Thank you very much. Says, beware of Mark Carney. He is more of a climate change radical than Trudeau. He is also an entrenched member of the global elite, whereas Trudeau is still a wannabe. Look for costs to go up drastically.
Yeah, we should be very worried about Mark Carney. He is the head of GFANZ. It's the Glasgow. Oh shoot. Anyways, it's this little, and it's not really little, but what they do is they work to debank oil and gas companies. So oil and gas companies that have already they've met the regulatory bar for approval and then do get approved by governments to go forward. What GFANZ does, which is headed by Mark Carney, is they get debanked. So they work to put pressure on financial institutions and insurance companies to make sure that these major, thank you, GFANZ. So he's the UN Special Envoy for Climate Change. And so I forget what the acronym is for GFANZ, but it's the Glasgow something or other. But what they do is they make sure that even though the projects have met regulatory approval, that they don't have the insurance or financing to go forward. So it's that next level of cancellation of oil and gas projects. So that's what he does. So look out, oil patch, now that he's in Justin Trudeau's ear.
Yeah, he's a big fish. Okay, the other one. Oh, it's Ryerson Gary again, says, Sheila, that is the major aspect of the hated HST that most of the folks don't understand. It isn't an add-on tax. It is just charged once. So he's talking about when he said it's added on to everything.
Yes, the carbon tax is added along all the way down. I know very little about the HST in British Columbia, except we don't have a sales tax here in Alberta, which saved parents, as my friend Chris Sims explained, about $50 in back to school costs compared to our friends on either side of us. Okay, Olivia, is that it?
I think so.
Okay, great. Well, I guess that's the show. Drea, thanks for joining me in place of David Menzies today. He's on special assignment in Springfield, Ohio, fighting for ducks and kittens. Just crazy. Yesterday, all I did was just show my family videos from Springfield, Ohio. They're like, enough already. But thanks so much, Drea, for joining me. And I think I speak on behalf of the company when I say that we're firmly in your corner in your fight to tell the truth about Jonathan Yaniv. And we'll do everything we can to make sure that you are not intimidated or in any sort of danger. And I know that our viewers at home feel the same way. So if they'd like to help, they can go to protectdrea.com.
Yep, that's it. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. And for all of the loving messages of support I also received. Thank you very much.
Oh, our viewers are the best. Okay, well, that's the show for today. Thanks for everybody who pitched in a little bit of money to keep the lights on around here, and everybody who shares the link to help us get around the intense internet censorship, particularly here in Canada, but also around the world. And thanks everybody who works behind the scenes to put the show together so it's there whenever you want to watch it. And as my friend David Menzies always says, stay safe and stay sane.
Hi, everybody. As you know, every year we do a fundraiser for Rebel News that's super fun. It's a Rebel News cruise. We all go on a cruise ship together. We have dinner with each other. We have seminars when the ship's at sea, like Q&A sessions. And the rest of the time is your own. It's a vacation. It's a way to connect with other Rebel News enthusiasts. It's a way to check in with me and Sheila Gunn-Reid, David Menzies. Tons of Rebels are on the trip. And at the end of the day, it's a way to keep Rebel News strong because there's a little extra added to the cost, which is how we float the boat here at Rebel News. It's a fundraiser. Here's the next Rebel News cruise in case you've always wanted to go on one. It sets sail out of Vancouver, June 18th, 2025. It's a week-long, June 18 to 2025, and it's Vancouver to Alaska. So it's a lot easier to get to than a Caribbean cruise where you have to fly to Florida to set sail. Starts in Vancouver, where I'll greet you, Sheila, David, Alexa Lavoie, Drea Humphrey. It's a super fun trip. I've done it before. We go to Skagway, which is where the gold rush started. We go to Glacier National Park, which is as beautiful as it sounds. Go to rebelnewscruise.com to learn more, to check the pricing, and to book your cabin. Just let me rattle off some of the details of the places we're going. It's called the Alaska Inside Passage Cruise. If you know what that means, you go up right along the coast. It's on Holland America, so it's nice. It's the MS Zandam. That's the name of the ship. Obviously, we start off in Vancouver, next the Tracy Arm Inlet, then Juneau, the capital of Alaska, Skagway, by far my favorite city. It's amazing. Then Glacier Bay. Maybe the most beautiful place I've ever been in my life. Back to Ketchikan and then down to Vancouver. If you like cruising, this is a super way to do it with fellow travelers, ideologically speaking. If you've never cruised before, this is a great way to start. And if you've been on Rebel News cruises, well, you don't want to miss this one. Again, for details, go to rebelnewscruise.com. It's next June, so just under a year away, but not too soon to order and to get the early bird discount. I'll see you at sea.